Hello, everybody, and welcome to the United Stand. Sorry, a bit late tonight. We've just been out clapping for the NHS as we do on a Thursday night, and I found, well, I'd like to say I found him outside, but he's over the waters in America. We've got Phil Brown on. How you doing, Phil?
Doing good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Well, good in the circumstances. Good. For people who don't know who Phil is, he's been on the show before. Beyond the Pitch podcast. Also, well, you've done quite a lot of stuff, Phil, over the years, haven't you? But good connections with United.
Yeah, I've enjoyed working with United for years, and obviously out here I've been on ESPN, Sirius XM. I was on Sirius XM for years. I've had my own podcast for over 10 years, so I've done a bunch of stuff in Asia and stuff. So always really busy. It's something that's a labour of love. Really enjoy it.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to be talking to Phil about United. I think the last time we had on the show, we were talking about, because obviously you get a bit of info out United. We haven't spoke for a while about this, but I think the last time we spoke, we were talking about how, Woodward doesn't like to spend money. The Glazers don't like to spend money. So we'll be talking about that because there's a lot of stuff going on. The market at the moment it's the perfect opportunity for United not to spend money, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Just a little bit of headlines for people. Grealish, I think, is in the thumbnail. I didn't do it, but this is coming from Manchester Evening News. I think it was Samuel Lockhurst who's writing about it, that Manchester United no longer see Maddison as a viable option because of his price, and that Jack Grealish is a priority, and also Timo Werner. And look, doesn't mean we're going to sign these players, but what effectively this story is saying is that right wing, centre midfielder, and a striker are the priority positions for Manchester United. Jack Grealish is seen as the priority now because Maddison's not available, and Timo Werner is considered as an option. And it does say that Manchester United have been tracking this player, which is interesting because Di Marzio said this week highly unlikely that he goes to Liverpool, even though Liverpool are the favourites for him. And Werner did speak openly a couple of months ago about Manchester United being an interesting project to go to a club that's not where it needs to be, and being part of that project rather than going to a club that's already there and just being, sort of a decoration on what's already a great cake. So, what's your thoughts on that, Phil? We'll get your thoughts on that. Grealish, Timo Werner, midfielders. Sancho seems to be, I think we all know Sancho's the number one.
First of all, with Timo Werner, I was listening to Didi Haman's comments on him today, who was saying that he's really suited to a counter-attacking team. He's not suited to Liverpool, and if you sit deep in against him and don't give him space, he's really ineffective. I suppose United have been a counter-attacking team for a long time, but I think once they brought in Bruno Fernandes, they changed that a bit, and you've seen United winning games without just the one-dimensional counter-attack. They started to open up teams. So would he be right for Manchester United? I don't know. Probably in some games, yes, but Timo Werner is going to be a player that wants to play every week. His 52 million price tag, his expires, that clause expires shortly, so that deal would have to happen soon. But as far as Grealish goes, to me, that was always the obvious option. I always thought United would prioritise Grealish over Sancho. I think they looked at Maddison. Sorry, I think they looked at Villa's situation with him possibly being relegated. He would always be available cheaper anyway. He's a fantastic player and probably more suited to United than Maddison. I like James Maddison, a very good player, but Jack Grealish has been. He actually reminds me of Roy Keane in the year Forest were relegated. It's Jack Grealish against the rest. He's a fantastic player, and I think he would be a good player for United. He was excellent at Old Trafford earlier in the season. Who was the other one? Oh, Sancho. Sancho, I think he's United's priority, and I think United will do that deal. But here's the reality. I'd done an interview this morning with Peterborough United owner Darren McCanty. I was asking him what was being communicated to the football club about loans and signings, and what he has told me is that the Football League have told him that loans will be extended because they want to stay out the season. But as long as they have loans on the books, they don't have to pay their players while there's no football. But the problem is there's no clear directive on transfers because nobody knows when the season's going to resume, if it will resume. I mean, there's talk about possibly not seeing football to 2021 until we see a vaccine. So I just feel that it's really, given the state of the world that we're living in right now, I don't think any transfers will happen anytime soon.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting. I mean, we were talking a few months ago about this, and Manchester United, and just on Grealish, apparently United and Manchester Evening News were talking about this. Apparently with United, they were trying to get this deal sort of signed, delivered and sealed not publicly though, because they couldn't do that in February, a bit like Ziyech with Chelsea, because they felt that Grealish's price was going to go up because he probably would have got into the Euros squad and that would have knocked money on, and you don't know whether Villa are going to stay up or not. So you don't know how advanced that Grealish deal is. I said, I speak to quite a lot of people, and the same person who I spoke to a couple of weeks ago about Sancho, I spoke to straight after the day I did the Fabrizio Romano interview, and I spoke about Grealish, and they said, everything I'm hearing is that we will not go for Grealish unless Pogba goes. And that then sort of wanders us into the Pogba arena again, which we know Solskjaer has said, expect him to stay. My feeling on that is, well, expectations aren't necessarily reality. And as Fabrizio Romano said, and I think a couple of people have said, Pogba's not had his meeting with United and Raiola yet. And if that meeting is, I want to go, then maybe that's where all this Grealish is coming from. Because I can't see us signing Grealish if Pogba stays, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, especially if you're going to spend close to 100 million on Sancho, which I think is United's priority. The thing is, when you're talking about the likes of Sancho, the variables are massive. We don't know. There's currency differences because of the economy. So prices prior to this virus are totally irrelevant. So how do you price a player today? Because clubs are going to need to sell players. That's obvious. There's going to be a few clubs around that'll have money. And I can assure you, the owners of that football club, Manchester United, will not be spending any money they don't need to spend. So they will have put the brakes, in my opinion, on the Sancho deal until there's some clarity as to when we resume playing football again. And as you can see, the Premier League are very brand conscious, Mark. So they're not going to want to resume playing football while they're getting criticised for pulling key medical staff away from hospitals, while they're issuing tests to players and the general public can't get tested, National Health Service can't get tested. There's just no way that's going to happen. And so if a player gets infected and dies, it would be Armageddon for the Premier League. The risk is just too high. So I honestly feel that whilst United will eventually do the Sancho deal, it's not getting done anytime soon.
It's interesting. I want to talk about United and sort of pick what I like to do when we get Phil on the show is talk about United and the Glazers and spending money, because I think your thoughts and the information and your opinion on that's great. But let's talk about Project Restart for a moment, because I know Flex and Troops were talking about it at lunchtime. He's from Arsenal Fan TV. I had my say last night. We have had a press conference at 5:00 today, which was with Boris Johnson. And I always feel that, I know he's been really ill, but whenever he does a press conference, it's far more interesting. And whether it's believable or not, depends which wing you sit on. But he was talking about the peak being over. He was talking about, we're probably still going to be a long lockdown for a long time, but schools were mentioned. And my feeling is that if you're going to send people back to school in June, there's no reason at all why you can't play football. I mean, you're right what you say about using key workers, but I know we've got a. I think as long as there's going to be what I want to do is get your opinion, because I think there's going to be an element of risk no matter what we do. Some people seem to think there's this silver bullet that you can. Let's not play it in January. Let's not play it in June. Let's start again in September and sign Jadon Sancho. I mean, the money just won't be there if we cancel the league, will it? Surely you're going to lose the money.
Well, look, my view on this is you have to countenance the loss of people's livelihoods against risk. And I totally empathize with people that are being asked to stay home in a home they can't afford to pay for anymore. Rent is due, mortgages are due in another day or two. They don't have enough money. I mean, the lines at food banks here are truly unbelievable. And so I totally empathize with those people that have no other choice but to go out. And at some point, the government is going to have to balance up the risk of, yes, we're going to get more infections. Yes, more people will die. But we can't hide from this forever. If there's a vaccine, and typically turnaround on a vaccine is 2 years, we can't sit in for 2 years. We can't cancel life for 2 years. But at the same time, there has to be, right? I mean, Las Vegas is a great example for me and the rest of the world and what they do to countenance the risk. And they're installing ultraviolet lights inside their casinos. They're having people walk around constantly disinfecting everything. And they're going to make you wear gloves and stuff like that. So I don't know the answer. It's very difficult for governments to adjudicate on this because you have to weigh up what people losing their livelihoods and all the things that come with that: suicide, depression, mental health issues. It's not an easy decision.
It isn't, and just to add a bit of things into this, and we mustn't compare. I mean, something people really don't seem to grasp in this country is that they keep looking at the death rate and the infection rate in Germany and France and Italy. I can tell you now, the UK has got bigger population density than all of those. And I just came inside from clapping and I saw on BBC Wolverhampton, I think they were all doing happy birthday to this 100-year-old who's raised loads of money for charity, and they're clapping. They're all within 1.5 meters of each other. And I just think you're totally missing the point here. If you put more people in a closer gap, you're going to get more infection and you're going to get more.
Of course.
So that is why we can't have pubs and cinemas and etc. Things like that. But Germany are opening hairdressers and everything at the start of May. They look like the Bundesliga is going to get back. And I think this is an opportunity for England. We are, and the Premier League, because we are about 3 weeks probably behind Germany and Italy. And if they do it and it succeeds, I think it gives us the almost the blueprint to do it.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, Germany, I think, have handled it a lot better. But I was reading this morning that they've had a lot of new infections. They're still slightly less than the 0.1%. Or the 1% rate of infection that they want, but once it reaches 1%, then they go into lockdown. They've had 3 days of 0.9%. So it's right on the precipice of going back into lockdown if these infections increase, which you would imagine it would. I mean, the CDC expert out here is saying we should expect this to still have coronavirus for the remainder of the year. I just don't see how you can get crowds in the stadiums whilst coronavirus is prevalent. And so football behind closed doors is a bit, I mean, it's better than nothing, but remember there's a lot of clubs rely on gate receipts. I mean, even United's 20% of the revenue comes from matchday revenue. I didn't realize it was that high, but it is. Yeah. So it would heavily affect football clubs. But the financial impact of not finishing the season, I mean, again, I was talking to the Peterborough owner this morning, and he said they've already been paid for the rest of the season. If they have to pay back the TV money, that a lot of clubs would go to a wall, and they might be one of them. So obviously clubs want to see out the season because for the financial aspect, they don't want to give money back, right? And that's what they're banking on, is finishing the season and then continuing to play next season. So, but to be honest, I don't see it happening. I mean, the governor here in California has said to the NFL, do not expect fans in the stadium in September.
Yeah. It's I just excuse me, I was just going on the phone because I'd seen something in the live comments, and apparently the German Bundesliga is not returning on May the 9th, as previously hoped. The German government have delayed a decision on the league's return next week, so that's a bit of a pushback on that as well. I mean, look, what just before we move on to something else, Phil, nobody's a genius, no one's got an answer in this, but everyone's got an opinion. What would you like to see, or do you think will happen?
You know, I'm self-employed, and everything I've built in 20 years has been basically destroyed in 2 months. It's heartbreaking. And so, but I have an underlying condition. You know, I've only got one kidney and other issues. So when this thing happened, I was warned, you do not get this virus, right? So I'm one of the high-risk people. But again, I've got a young family, so what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stay home and not take risks? I have to go out and take risks to feed my family. I have no choice. I mean, so again, I don't know. I want normality back because it's very difficult to live any other way. But I don't know what to do. I don't know what the answer is, and I do empathize with these lawmakers because it is very, very difficult.
It is, and you know what I mean. I think last night I was thinking. I was getting a bit frustrated with people because everyone just, and I don't think anybody on either side doesn't appreciate the fact that we're trying to save lives here. So for me, that's the most important argument. But I feel that it's not the argument that I think people are hiding behind it. Some people, I think some people don't want Liverpool to win the league. Some people
Sure.
are doing it for political matters. Some people are doing it just because they want to moan about something. And some people are genuinely just scared and concerned and think that we should just stay in a lockdown for as long as possible. My feeling is that if you're going to play in June, if you're thinking about playing in September, you may as well try and do it in June, because I don't see anything different happening. In fact, I think we're going to get a spike in the autumn anyway. So trying to finish a 9-game season seems far more sensible than trying to start a new 38-game season. But I don't, if everybody thinks it's too dangerous to do it, I'll put my hand up and say, that's really sad because we're going to miss it. But if we've got to wait till June 2021, we wait till June 2021. I just don't think, I think you try and come back in June and July. There's no difference in September or October, because it's the only safe way out of this is a vaccine. There's going to be an element of risk. And if people don't want to take that risk, whether it's players, fans, whatever, then let's just write it off for a year, because that's
here's the thing. If we do that, football will look very differently in 2021. It will be the apocalypse. Because remember, yes, the Premier League players, they can afford to wait another year, but the players in the lower leagues can't. They'll have to go get jobs. They'll not be football players anymore. They'll have to go do something. So what football will, I don't think that's going to happen. I think eventually there'll be there'll be football, and possibly people will sign waivers. If you get it, that's up to you. I'm sorry. You know the risk, you take the risk. Because I think the government is aware of the financial impact and the cataclysmic impact to people. I mean, it's already here. There's no social services, so people are just being devastated, and that can't continue, because you've got people committing suicide. You've got people out here that are on the street with their kids. It's a disgrace. And so, but even if you open the economy, Mark, I was looking at Wuhan this morning, most of the restaurants don't want to open because it costs them more to be open with a lower capacity than what it does to be closed. And so it's a very slow return to normal life. And they've still got social distancing. A lot of their places are still shut down. A lot of their barbers are shut down. A lot of their movie theaters are all shut down. So it's not normal yet. And they're starting to get new infections. So I think until we get a vaccine, we'll be dealing with this as we are.
I do. I totally agree with that. And I think that that is. But I'll go back to what I say. I mean, we are talking football, but it's real life, and it links in with that. But this, I think, the mindset people need to get out of, whether they're United fans, Arsenal fans, whatever. You're not cancelling a season, signing Partey and Sancho, and then going in the Champions League and starting a new season in September. That is the most fantasy option I've ever heard. I think it's more fanciful than starting the season in June, which some people think is. If the season gets cancelled, United will lose hundreds of millions. Arsenal will lose hundreds of millions. And you're right, Phil, as well. The longer this goes on, the more the football, football's the same as anything else. I've got people who own pubs that they're not going to be coming back from this the longer it goes. And that is the challenge in these unprecedented times for everybody.
Exactly. And football needs consumers. So if people aren't buying tickets because they can't afford it, if you go back to the last financial crash in 2007, 2008, that was a year United sold Ronaldo, and 3-4 years they didn't really spend money, and that culminated in the whole Wayne Rooney debacle, with United fans finally losing patience and Wayne Rooney doing the right thing by saying, I want you to show me ambition, then doing the wrong thing by agreeing to a contract with a massive pay raise. He was right in the beginning, wrong in the end. So I fear for United in the ability to spend, because they're heavily dependent upon how markets perform. There's debt there. If currency valuations drop, that debt increases. United's ability to spend greatly decreases. So I do think Neil Eiston's also having an impact on how United are communicating with the media, because they've done a really good job in the last few months, which is a complete turnaround from what they've usually been doing. And Woodward, I think, I've been a big critic of his, but I think he was right to talk about the realities of the situation in football and the fact that there just won't be tons of money about. So I know we all want to see these players, we all want to see football again, but I personally know someone who has died from this illness, and it happened quickly. And I think as long as people are dying, football cannot resume.
It's very, very true. A couple of things I want to go on. I mean, Paul Robinson just said there, if the season gets cancelled, there's about £700 million that needs to go back to BT and Sky because the season's not completed for that little bit. They're not repaying it all; it's the little bit that's left. So, that sort of thing that's shared out just for the Premier League. But you're right there. I mean, let's smash a like on the video, everyone, and please do share it. We've got Phil Brown on over from America. I can never pronounce this. How do you pronounce your Twitter?
Malachans. It's my old football team. Malachians.
Beyond the Pitch podcast, and does over the years has done some fantastic stuff around United.
Thank you,
and really, really good podcast, which we'll shout out at the end. But also good connecting with United over the years, and we've had him on a few times. Last time we spoke, we were talking about. I think it was fair to say it was a negative time around United, and we were talking about United won't want to spend money. They don't want to spend money, and there's been a total change. You're right. I mean, from today, loads of packages going out for homeless people. The NHS instead of Manchester, loads and loads of things has changed since Woodward's house was attacked. Some people think this is because Neil Ashton's been brought in as the PR expert. Well, whatever it is, there's definitely a lot of positivity, but it's not just PR. The Bruno Fernandes signing, the talk of signing Sancho. Do you think, firstly, in relation to this change, the transfer stuff, United, you know a lot more about this than me, but United would have put the brakes on some of this stuff, the Grealish talk, the Sancho talk. They are in contact with the media. I don't think they run the media, but they'd certainly try and put a handbrake on it. The thing, everyone thinks we're signing Sancho. They're happy for it to guide on. They bought Bruno in January. Do you think there has been a change in policy for transfers?
Well, I mean, they came out last and said they were offended. The release of Bruno Fernandes, and they go send him 6 months later. So clearly there's a comfortable relationship between Manchester United and the press, and that is too comfortable at times. And there's obviously a game of access going on, where certain people are very careful about who they criticise, and there's no question, if you're very critical of a football club, they will not cooperate with you, as I have found out.
Me too.
Yes, so they have a particular aversion to you criticising them heavily. So, but as I've always said, look, I'm just honest. This is how I feel. I've been a United fan for 30 years, 35 years. I'm not going to do anything other than tell the truth, because it's just the way I feel. I'm not out to do this for fame. I'm not out to do this to make money. This is just an outlet for me to talk about my love of Manchester United, and I'll always be honest about what I feel. So, but what has changed from United? Neil Ashton is the obvious change. So the fact that they're communicating properly with the media tells me it's at his direction. But they even made a mess of that appointment, because you never tell people you're appointing a PR representative, because as soon as you do, everything positive becomes questionable. So, in every positive story that you assume it's come from PR. But, I think Bruno Fernandes was always a target of theirs. I think they dragged that out as long as they could, in the hope that they could get the price down from Sporting. I do think if United knew what was coming, they'd have waited on that deal. I think they'd have waited, because what would be the point of signing him for football to be suspended 2-3 months later? It just wouldn't have made sense. So in some ways, I'm glad they did it when they did it, because we may never have seen Bruno Fernandes at United. If they had waited, you may never have seen him. So I'm delighted that I think that they have definitely changed their transfer policy from he's a bit good, he'll do, being recommended by an agent, to actually having a methodical process like they did with Wan-Bissaka, like they did with Harry Maguire. And it's proved to be effective, because the signings that they're making are performing and being consistent. And what Solskjaer has done with the players that he's got is remarkable, in my opinion. He's turned players in. He's got Brandon Williams, he's got a left back, he's got Fred, who he's turned into a football player. Scott McTominay, who's turned into a football player. And I think he deserves a lot of credit.
What do you think about I mean, we've seen that Newcastle are probably going to get taken over by the Saudis. What do you feel the situation is around the Glazers at the moment? Because that's something that's sort of been forgotten. But I remember last summer people were like, why aren't you getting behind the Glazer out movement? I'm always behind it. I've seen it happen and fail. Even now when we're doing well, I would rather not have them. 2008 when we won the Champions League, I'd rather not have them. But that's what I always say. You can't just be glazers out when you're not winning on the pitch or you're not signing a player. You've got to understand why people are glazers out, and it's because they run us as a business. And sometimes we'll be successful, but sometimes we won't be because of that. What they're in for the long run now, especially with this financial crash, or do you think that they still are looking to maybe cash out?
The Glazers have a love of money. They're not buying United because they love the football club. They didn't buy United because they care about their success. They took United over because they want to make money. So if somebody comes along and offers them the right price, they'll sell it. They were holding on for streaming rights in the hope that there was a big bonanza to be had there with Amazon and other companies who were flirting with streaming Premier League matches. And what United really hope to do is be able to offer, especially the international fans, a carte blanche menu where you, instead of subscribing to a cable channel to watch matches or to watch all the Premier League, you only buy Manchester United games at $1.99 a time, and that works out cheaper. But United obviously get a lot more of the revenue, and the way they're going to sell this to a Norwich or someone else is, look, you're going to make more money from United fans paying to watch this than what you would of the Premier League. So, but what it will do is it will create a big disadvantage between the top clubs and the bottom clubs financially. The problem is copyright. You see the Saudis or beIN Sports are going after them because they illegally stream, they illegally show Premier League and cost the Premier League billions. And unfortunately for United and most of other clubs, the last Premier League contract reflected that. And they said, look, there's too much copyright, there's too much piracy, so we're losing money. And so that streaming bonanza never came. So yes, they'd sell Manchester United in a second, but so few people in the world that can afford United. And what we've had to pay over $1 billion for the privilege of being owned by them, and they were the only people that wanted it.
Yeah, interesting. We sort of touched on it there. What do you think about? It gets mentioned everywhere, but we've not spoken for a while. What do you feel about the Paul Pogba situation? Do you think we will see him at United next season, or do you think again everything's clouded by this pandemic, isn't it?
I think we'll see him United next season. I think simply because of this virus. I don't think I think because of this virus, otherwise he wouldn't have been. His agent, Nora, the lady that runs the agency, Rafaela Pimenta, was very clear. I remember whenever United signed Lukaku, and I was sitting talking to her, and her words were to me and to Martin Walwork, who does the podcast with me, was Paul never wanted to go back to United. He wanted to go to Barcelona or Real Madrid, but they didn't pay the money. They couldn't afford to pay him. And so he went back, and it was always to be a 3-year project and then leave. I think if he wants to leave because he didn't feel never matched his ambition, I would respect that. I would say, okay, fine. But I think a lot of things that have been done in the media are quite disrespectful. He needed to think the Mino Raiola comments. I think what happened prior to the City game where he dyed his hair blue, and Mino Raiola and Pep Guardiola said he had been offered Paul Pogba. I think Paul Pogba owed United fans an explanation at the very least to come out and say what happened there. Look, he's a gazelle. He's a brilliant football player. He's by far United's most talented player, but he hasn't grown into the role United have asked him to play in. And if United sold him today, I think they'd be lucky to get their money back on him.
Yeah, I think even before the crisis, there was often this talk of 100 million or whatever like that. And realistically, when you sign a player like Paul Pogba 3 years ago for 89 million, and then you're going to sell him at 26, 27, you expect to be making a bit of a profit. And the fact that nobody wants to pay that profit just shows you where we're at. Going back to Woodward's comments, I think they came out this morning. I was talking about them. No, last night they came out, and he was saying that basically along the lines of we're determined and. We want to keep backing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who clearly is achieving great things, and United are heading in the right direction. Now, I said this morning, I'm behind Solskjaer at the moment. I think that we are turning the corner, but I don't think we're achieving great things, and I think that is part of what you're saying there about PR. That we can almost there's so much positivity around United, and the lockdown certainly dilutes the memory. But we were on track for our lowest ever points Premier League total. The season has been very, very bad. Now, that's not a reason to say Solskjaer out. I think we're starting to move forward because of Bruno and other things. But I couldn't believe it when Woodward came out with a public statement that Ollie's clearly the right man. I haven't seen that evidence yet. I don't know what you think. I mean, do you believe Solskjaer will be the man to bring the good times back?
Well, he clearly wasn't selected for any other reason than he was in the right place at the right time and he used to play for Manchester United. She wouldn't have selected him on his managerial record. So again, his appointment was a reflection of United's recruitment issues. He's a bit good, he'll do. It was a gamble. It worked in the beginning, then reality set in. I said at the time when he was signing his contract in March that I hope he was strong on transfers to get what he needed. He didn't get what he needed in the summer. Didn't sign the players he needed this summer. And it was obvious to me that United were going to struggle throughout the season because they were clearly, I couldn't believe that they let a few midfielders go without signing a midfielder. It was truly unbelievable. I mean, neglect beyond belief, in my opinion, that you didn't sign a midfielder. It was, and half the season was written off because United were one-dimensional tactically. They had to play in a counter-attack because they didn't have a single creative midfielder to open teams up. And as soon as they got one that was of a world-class level, everything changed. The United didn't lose a game since Bruno Fernandes came in. So I think it depends how you evaluate Solskjaer. I think if you're a manager, you're only as good as your players. If you don't get the players you asked for, and I empathize with Mourinho and other people on this that didn't get the players they were asking for, then you're going to struggle. And so Woodward needs to get out of his own way and listen to managers and do what they're telling him, not what he wants to do. And so for me, I think when you look at how he was finishing the season, it looked like there was something concrete there. It looked like there was finally some foundation there where you're going, okay, I can see something taking shape here. They're 2-3 players away. The defence looks sorted. In my opinion, maybe you could argue Harry Maguire needs a centre back better than Lindelof, possibly. De Gea sometimes was losing form, but still an exceptional goalkeeper. But that's the best defence we've had in a long, long time. Midfield started to take shape with Fred and McTominay. And so the obvious issue was Jadon Sancho on the right. We needed badly need someone on the right. So I just think he's done a very, very good job of both bringing in new signings and bettering the players that he has. Progress is not always linear. It's not always going from being poor to challenging for the title. I think sometimes you've got to take a step back to move a step forward, and I think he's done that.
Mourinho always spoke about above him there was nobody who understood football, and I think he was 100% right about that. And I think the transfers have reflected that. But as you were saying, we've all seen an improvement in the transfers. And I remember something PR coming out probably a couple of weeks ago that Ed Woodward's only involved in negotiation now. He's not involved in recruitment. So basically, he gets the player that they want, and then he goes and negotiates it. I don't know how this works because it can so Ollie's now in charge of recruitment, even though he's a very inexperienced manager. Do you believe that? Is there a director of football? How can that work? Because we've never had anybody above the manager who's known anything about football. So are we now just trusting our scouting process and Solskjaer and Phelan, and then Woodward goes and gets the player?
It does seem like that is what has happened since the summer. It does feel like that Solskjaer has been the one to decide who they go for. But when you hear things like there's a committee of football experts, but no one knows who's on it. I mean, clearly the people that were making decisions about Manchester United's transfers, football decisions, knew nothing about football. I've sat in Ed Woodward's company. Ed Woodward is a really nice human being, an extremely intelligent guy too. And I won't say anything bad about him personally, but he's not the most intelligent. He doesn't know a lot about football, and that's fair. But I just think if he delegated that properly, United would have saved a lot of money over the years, and we wouldn't be looking at where we're at. But I do feel that something changed at the football club after Solskjaer came in, where United knew it wasn't just the manager that had to change; they had to change. And I did sense that had changed, and I think United were following a sensible recruitment plan since then.
Yeah, you drive. I'm not bothered about taking a question where you criticise me. He says he's not inexperienced. That is a lie. You keep repeating it. It's not a lie. It's an opinion. I genuinely want Solskjaer to do well, but he's managed Mulder and Cardiff where he got the sack. He's not an experienced manager by age or experience of previous jobs. Manchester United is the biggest job in football. I don't think there's a bigger job. Maybe Real Madrid, or Barcelona. It's a huge job. He's inexperienced, and I've always quantified it by saying it's not his fault. He's inexperienced at this job. He's going to have to do it for a couple of years to get good at it, because it's not Mourinho walking in. It's not Van Gaal. It's not even Pochettino. He's got no experience of being successful in the Premier League. So people take these things the wrong way. It's actually an excuse for him, if anything, because he's got to learn on the job, and it's not his fault. It's not his fault. Woodward put him into that situation.
Well, I think, if you look at what he's done, he's finally, for the first time, and I don't know, since Ferguson left, you feel like there's something concrete being built. I think he has an experience that's obvious. And that's what I'm saying whenever Woodward made that decision to hire him. It clearly wasn't based on his managerial accomplishments or success or anything like that. If Solskjaer had never played for United, he never would have got the job. He never even any consideration. So but playing and managing are two different skills. It's plumber and electrician. Just because they're both on a construction site doesn't mean they're the same discipline. They're completely different. How you communicate to a human being to motivate them to see different trends other than just managing yourself and how you play is totally different. And I think one of your viewers there put up a really good point, that he did change also the mentality inside the club, where it went from being, I really don't care, it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault, I'm playing for myself, to you saw that snide with Bruno Fernandes in the Man City game, where there was confidence and a swagger again about United, where they felt they could win big games consistently because they were good enough. They could beat the weaker teams because they had the quality to open them up when they sat back against them. And I haven't seen that United in a long time.
No, it's true. And look, I think that he's been lucky. I'm not talking results. I think he was lucky to get the job because he had played for us and he was in the right place at the right time. And I think he's been lucky because if he wasn't Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he would have been gone. After that Burnley game, he would have been. If that was Moyes, or he should have gone then. But the patience could pay off. It really could pay off. And I hope it does. I hope he does get it right, because he knows more than anybody what this club's all about. He played through the period that we as fans, especially me and you, Phil, that's the United we grew up with. The Roy Keane. He played with Roy Keane. We all go, we need a Roy Keane. He played with Roy Keane. He played under that. He knows he needs a Roy Keane. He knows how Sir Alex Ferguson managed.
I talk to people that know him, and I ask him what his personality is like. Does he have a nasty personality if he gets upset? And every single person has told me that behind closed doors, he has a very strong personality, and he has no problems letting you know if he's upset. Look, if you take a look at the start of last season, you had Jesse Lingard uploading stupid videos. One of United fans were angry about what was going on at the football club. He brought that in the line. Jesse Lingard was having his own hard time. I accept that. He has changed how United interact with the media also and with fans, and brought a culture back to the club and a discipline that says this isn't acceptable, this football club. Jesse Lingard clearly wants to leave the football club, and that's fine. But Solskjaer, I think it's really, really important you set precedents for discipline inside a dressing room, so players know if you cross it, you will be disciplined. They have to respect you and fear you to a degree. And I think Solskjaer's getting that from his players. You can see it on the field.
Difficult question, because we know Pochettino's available. If you were in charge and Pochettino's there saying, I want the job, would you stick with Ole, or would you take the...
I would stick with Ole, because since when is a sacked Spurs manager with no trophies being a Man United manager?
Yeah.
I mean, I like Pochettino. I think he's a good coach. I think he's done a good job at Spurs. If you take a look at Simeone at Atletico Madrid, he got them to multiple European Cup finals. Pochettino got Spurs to one. They lost it. I think Pochettino is a good coach, but not. I can't call him elite yet, because elite coaches win trophies, and they win them with teams that aren't supposed to win them. That's how we find out about them. And Pochettino hasn't done that yet. He's done a good job at the clubs that he's been at, but the expectation there is totally different. It's not good enough just to bring a couple of good young players through from your academy. In United, you have to win trophies. And so, would I sack Solskjaer for a world-class manager? Yes, but I'm not sure Pochettino's that.
I agree. I think that to now would not be the time. If you're talking about it after that Burnley game, let's have a chat. But now is not the time. I know lockdown is.
You need to definitely talk to him. You need to talk to him in December, I think it was, end of December, and met with him, and that was when things were really ropey at United. But remember, second Solskjaer means Woodward has to admit again that he made a mistake. So the patience with Solskjaer was somewhat selfish, because Woodward didn't want to accept and admit to the Glazers, and he made another mistake.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I mean, we've spoken about that before. That Moisey got wrong, Van Gaal got wrong, Mourinho got wrong, Solskjaer. That's 4 managers, and at what point? And I would say quite fairly, why is he still in a job? He's lucky as well. But look, if they all turn it round, then we're all the better for it. Which is part of the reason I want to see United back as soon as possible if it's safe, because I feel that with Pogba and Rashford in the team to the end of the season, we would go and get 4th, which would be what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, look, the shutdown killed United's momentum too.
Yeah, sorry, Phil. Carry on.
No, sorry, man, I lost you. I was just saying the shutdown killed United's momentum too. Look, it was inevitable Liverpool were going to win the league. I accept that. I didn't care, really. I accepted it. And even if the league's ended, they should be awarded it. I mean, it's inevitable they're going to win the league. But I don't care. They've had to watch us win it 13 times in the last, since Ferguson took over. So, football teams win, rival football teams win trophies every year. It's okay. But I do believe United would have finished 4th, and that shutdown killed United's momentum too. And for the first time in a long time, I was really enjoying watching them. So, believe me, it hurts United too, big time.
I think that's the thing for me. I mean, I don't know what your feeling is. I just think United are a proven side this season that sits back and hits on the counter, and results have been still quite good, especially against the bigger teams, because Chelsea want to play football, Man City want to play football, and they leave space at the back that if we defend well, we can hit them on the break. I don't see a long-term future in playing like that for United. I just don't. I think it's a bit like the George Graham days of Arsenal. United have got to play a certain way. And I don't believe for 1 second that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't realise that. I don't think his whole ethos is let's just defend and hit teams on the break and try and win a title. We haven't seen what Solskjaer's about yet, have we? I hope we haven't anyway.
Well, I thought we saw some tactical evolution once we've signed Bruno Fernandes. I thought United started to play differently, and you saw that reflected in some of the results where United were starting to beat teams that they should be beating, and Bruno Fernandes was pivotal in that, because he's someone that wants the ball, he's courageous, he's someone that settled in right away, someone that had the character and the charisma to say, I belong at Old Trafford, like Cantona did. And hit the ground running right away, and so made a massive difference to how United play. And I think that's the one player that Solskjaer badly needed to be able to do that. I think Pogba could have done that for him, but he's been out injured for so long. So Fernandes was an absolute must-sign, and it should have been done 6 months before.
Yeah, definitely. There's a question here from Mason Ag. He says, opinions on PSG being given the title. For anybody who doesn't know this, there is a rule in the French league. It's come out today, and the rule didn't, but apparently the French league already had this rule in place. If a season is suspended or cancelled, the title will be awarded based on where that is. We don't have it in the Premier League. The Bundesliga doesn't have it. La Liga doesn't have it. So Liverpool fans were starting to get a bit excited about this, that maybe they'll get given the title. I mean, do you think if the season is cancelled, which is a possibility, that Liverpool should get the title, or do you think it should just be voided? What would you do if they said we can't come back, we'll have to wait for a new season whenever we can play it? What do we do with this?
Here's the thing: no matter what they do, it's tainted anyway. So if you give them the trophy, the United fans will forever mock them that they never won the league, actually. Right. So in truth, Liverpool didn't want this shutdown either. It's hurt them. They would have won the league easily. It's incredible irony that they've been waiting almost 30 years. I think it is 30 years to win the league, and bit before they win it, a virus comes and stops them. But stop laughing at it. I wouldn't object to them getting the league, because they're so far ahead. But the other positions where there's a couple of points, you can't, especially where teams have games in hand, you can't settle that argument. So
we can't relegate Villa.
I think the season has to get finished. It's the only thing that makes sense.
I look at it and I go, well, look, yeah, you could give Liverpool the title if you wanted to. I don't agree with it because the race isn't over, but you could give them the title. But are you genuinely going to relegate Aston Villa with a game in hand?
Yeah.
You know, so you can't give one and then not the other. So if I was a Liverpool fan, I've got to be absolutely honest, and I've never said this, and I'll ask you, Phil, as well. If you're a Liverpool fan now, how confident would you be you're going to get your title? Because I would not be very. As a United fan, if we hadn't won the title for 30 years, I'd have been on cloud 9 at Christmas. I'd be like, we've won this. And then this happens, and it's not their fault. It isn't. They get blamed for a lot, but it isn't their fault. I would be going to bed every night as a Liverpool fan, really worried. And that's just an honest opinion.
Well, I mean, I think they'll finish the season because the financial ramifications of not finishing are just too great. And that's going to dictate what's going to happen. Hence the reason why all the clubs want to do it. But again, even if they resume playing football and Liverpool go on to win it, say behind closed doors or whatever, it's still a tainted trophy now for them because nothing's the same anymore. You know, teams are coming back; they're not match fit anymore. If they're not playing in front of fans, it raises their advantage. If they turn around and go and play in neutral stadiums, it means that it raises advantage, and so it's for Liverpool fans. It's terrible because they're going to repeatedly be mocked by other fans that they didn't win the title outright, no matter what they do. So I think they'll finish the season eventually.
I should have said this earlier. I'd actually got told it before I came on air. I got a message from some. I don't know whether I can say it's them, but they're on the channel anyway. And they've been told from somebody in the travel hospitality what do you call it? Sector, yeah. That plans are already in place for what's going to happen with the Premier League. It will be like a World Cup. It will be over 6 weeks. They will be put into hotels. They will be quarantined. They will be tested. They will do three games a day at neutral stadiums, and they will get it done in about 6 weeks. And that's how they're going to do it because it's so important to finish it. And that, to me, I feel sorry for them in that way because I'm like, that's not what I just thought behind closed doors, Old Trafford, go and see your family in the week, get tested, do your training. There just won't be any fans there. But I tell you what, if they're going to do it like that, that's about as safe as you can do anything, isn't it? It'll be hard on the players.
Well, I suggested something like that in the beginning, that you could possibly go to a country that doesn't have it. But then if you're a country that doesn't have it, it's not just 11 players that are traveling. It's fitness coaches, it's managers, it's kit managers, it's the Premier League people bring their chefs. There's hundreds of staff that come with it. If you're in a country that doesn't have it, do you really want thousands of people coming from a country that does have it? That people that may be asymptomatic, tested or not, because a lot of tests are false positives or false negatives. So that's going to be a challenge where a country's going to say, yeah, bring thousands of people in to play a football tournament here. It'd be a Premier League's wet dream. They'd love to play official games abroad. They've been trying to do that for years. Ideally, they'd love to come to America or China or somewhere else to do it, but they can't. So I agree that it's probably the safest way to do it, but what country is going to let thousands of people in from a country that has coronavirus?
I think what I read the other day is that if you use St George's Park, which is a massive training complex, you can have loads of people training there. You can do games at Wembley because it's got more than one training. I think it's got 6 or 7 changing rooms. The TV cameras are just set up the same. You do one game, you give it half an hour, and then you do another game, then you do another game. So I think it makes a lot of sense, even though it wasn't what I think it was going to happen. And you know what? Those people who are dead against it, I think, we either do it or we don't do it for a year. And if we're going to do
your Premier League clubs right now suggesting that any games being played at neutral venues is a non-starter. Bournemouth was one of the first ones to come out with, I think. So if you've got Premier League clubs not willing to do it, it can't be done.
It's a big day tomorrow. There's a meeting tomorrow, and we leaks like a sieve. So we'll find out that this time, well, probably afternoon tomorrow, what's going to happen, because there's got to be a willingness to make it work. And if there isn't, it won't work. So we'll see what happens. But look, the hour's flown by. I really appreciate you coming on, Phil,
Thank you for having me.
And give us a shout out of what you do and let people know where they can find you.
So just like you, I do content like this. I interview people every week. United people primarily, sometimes not, but mostly United people. You can find me at Malachans. That's MALACHIANS on Twitter, or you can find our podcast at Beyond the Pitch. So we've been doing it for a long, long time. We've interviewed hundreds of current and ex-United players. I've been lucky enough to interview a lot of my heroes and people that I've admired over the years, but it's just a fun podcast.
I saw the other day you were on about interviewing Roy Keane. It would be my dream to do, even though it could be the worst nightmare. But yeah,
I had to tell him 5 minutes in that I forgot to record it. And so,
I read that. I thought, you know what? I actually imagined it when I read the tweet, and I was like, that's got to be a hard thing to admit, but you've got to do it.
I was saying, like, come here, start again, and they told me you've got 15 minutes tops. He gave me 30. He was brilliant. So he's really, really good.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. We'll get you again soon. Everybody smash a like on the video. We'll be back in the morning with the Man United News Show. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. All right, man. Thanks, Mark.
Wait, hold on. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh.
Let me